Hi guys, thanks for joining me this evening, this afternoon, middle of the night, as I always say, wherever you are, whatever time it is. Listen, I'm going to cut to the chase because I'm really trying to keep these shows under 15 minutes. So if I talk fast or whatever, I'm sorry. Oh, and that's my cat trying to get through the door that I locked because I don't know, can't have a cat crawling all over me. Okay, so today's about my dad. Today's about location shooting with him, and today is also about all of the brushes with fame that I came across thanks to my dad traveling on location with him. Now, for starters, my dad was born in a small town called Alexis, Illinois, as has not been reported accurately. Everywhere you look, it says he was born in Esterville, Iowa. Documentaries, Wikipedia, everything. Anyway, he wasn't. His father died tragically in a car accident before he was born. He and his mother and his father lived there, and to cope with the tragedy, his mother and he moved to a town called Esterville, Iowa, in Iowa, because there was folks there that could help her through being a single mom. 1930, good God. Well, yeah, 1930 because his father died before he was born. Anyway, so he grew up in this town. He is not just some boxer, as again I think has been reported, like, oh yeah, he was like a champion boxer or whatever. No, my father was a regional boxer, extremely successful boxer. Joined the Air Force, became a prize fighter, what is known as a prize fighter, who's basically there to entertain the troops on an ongoing basis, beating people up. My dad had an excellent record. He had 60 wins and, I don't know, maybe a couple TKOs. Well, no, losses, actually. Then he came back to this country, and he did also boxing and wrestling, taking on all comers. Another thing that nobody knows. So when he returned, his fighting was in the carnival. He was in the carnival. He would take on, in the ring, all comers. Anyone that wanted to get in there to wrestle or fight with him, he would take on. Now, you can imagine the lumberjacks in 1949 or whatever. Well, they all wanted to beat up the pretty boy, and they didn't. He still had a pretty face. And that's one of the reasons why everyone wanted to fight him, and my dad had a rage that could fight anybody, pound them into the ground. Anyway, so as a result, my dad had a wanderlust. There is a point to this. He'd been everywhere. He was in Korea. He adopted a little child, named him Butch, who moved on to another family. Nobody knows this stuff. So he had this wanderlust, which played in well to being an actor. You get character studies, you get life experience, but he also loved being on location. There's nothing he loved more than going on a location shoot. It just really felt like you were really making a movie, and like, this camaraderie with other movie stars. And my dad was always very fond of brushes with fame, in that if he could work with them as an actor, so forth. So I did about 3 location shoots with my dad. My dad and I had traveled the country anyone that doesn't really understand or didn't know my dad between, let's say, the late 60s through the mid 70s may think they know my dad, and I'm sure they do know a lot about my dad, but they don't really know my dad like in the way that I do. From the late 60s to the mid 70s, he and I were all we had. My mother was not the type of divorcee who did not allow me to see my father. It was never like that, ever. She would bitch and moan, but I could be with him whenever I wanted to be. And late 60s, well, let's say 1972, especially to 1976, I was with him all the time, literally. My mother was busy with other things, which we'll get into in another show or book. So the second location shoot I did with him was actually, surprise folks, with Lynda Carter. Yes, Wonder Woman. It was a film called Bobbie Joe and the Outlaw, and it was we shot that in New Mexico or Arizona, or I don't know. And you can still see it. It's kind of a cult film. So I was on that location shoot with Lynda Carter, Linda Pearl, who was kind of like started as a scream queen and then ended up being, sort of kind of a serious actress. Marjoe Gortner, famous unto himself, and I don't know, other people in that movie. I'm actually in it. Actually, I'm staring at my dad's dead body. His famous scene was he gets into like a gunfight with Marjoe Gortner, and he dies. in a gas station, outside a gas station. So in the scene after he gets shot, in his famous, I mean, his favorite death scene, that goes on for maybe 20 minutes. Um, so I'm there staring at his bloody dead body as Lynda Carter and the killer bunch drives away. So there was a relationship with Lynda Carter actually that extended to Los Angeles. I would see her on the Warner Brothers set, actually doing Wonder Woman. My dad would visit her twice. And I'll never forget the second time she actually asked my dad when we were leaving her dressing room if he needed any money, which he, you know, turned down. He was, you know, a class act. But wow, isn't that amazing? Lynda Carter, we had worked together on Bobbie Joe and the Outlaw. Then we see her a couple times on the set, Wonder Woman set, and she's like kind enough to step outside of her dressing room after we had left, step to the stairs and say, "Hey, Verge." And I don't know if she said, like, you need any bread? Like, money was called bread back then. It was something like that. And I was just like, I will never forget that. To this day, I cannot believe Lynda Carter stood there in her Wonder Woman outfit asking my dad if he needed any bread as we were leaving. Not like announcing it to the cast or whatever, but just, you know, you're close enough to the dressing room. So wow on that, right? So second location shoot is a major shoot. Okay, there's a lot about this shoot that I can't get into because some of it is in my book. Some of it has to do with some very personal stuff in my book that happened to happen on this shoot in Montana. Anyway, I'll figure that one out and I'll clue you in. So we're on this shoot. It's called Missouri Breaks. It stars Marlon Brando, Jack Nicholson, and my father and several other people. My dad has, you know, a co-starring featured role, but he's kind of through it. So it was quite a shoot. And so he plays, of course, my dad was always typecast as kind of the badass. Always, 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 always. My dad in a romantic comedy would stick out like a dead horse. I mean, it really would not fly. He was just that type of actor. He was either a cop or a really bad guy. 6 of 1. So we're on shoot, you know, on location in Montana, Billings, Montana. Now, city kid from like me, you know, you take me to Billings, Montana, you know, I mean, I'd driven through very rural areas of the country with my father twice to the Midwest, so I was used to that. But this was supposed to be a location, you know, Billings, Montana. They've got an A&W root beer drive-through, and well, there's that. So I don't know, maybe Billings is a mecca now. I don't know, but it sure wasn't. So we shoot this in Billings, Montana. Marlon Brando, Jack Nicholson. My dad, there was a lead actress that never went anywhere, but she was pretty good. The brunette that plays the love interest, Jack Nicholson's love interest. So anyway, Missouri Breaks. So we're there. My dad knows Marlon Brando from the 60s. Again, it's been sort of, you know, popularized that my dad was like a civil rights guy. Well, yeah, he was. He really was. I'll show you the pictures. You know, I'm sure my sister has film of it. And so therein, he met Marlon Brando. And this was kind of early 60s. So he knew him. They knew each other-ish. And then they did Missouri Breaks together. So now it's like, you know, now that's like, you know, toe-to-toe here. Because they have a scene together. He's got a couple scenes with Jack Nicholson, but a few. But anyway. So I'm on location with them. Of course, there's a famous picture of my dad, which I posted, of him and Marlon Brando arm in arm, side by side. Well, I was right next to Marlon Brando when that picture was taken. I was just to Marlon's right, and then the dressing room's trailer, whatever thing, was behind me. And the cameraman was the set cameraman who was here. They were there and I was there. I knew Marlon only in that I always knew him by proxy of my father. Like I did a lot of celebrities. I would say, "Oh, Sean, you know, Virgil Fry's son." Well, same with Marlon. Afterwards, I saw him in one social situation. Of course, it started with, "Hey, Sean, Virgil Fry's son," and bingo, everything, all the doors open. So, kind of, in a weird way. So, sometimes in a way that really matters to really kind of get to know people and have these brushes. So, I see Marlon on the set frequently, but frequently off by himself, like, in between shots or before shooting or whatever. He was always off to himself. And he would run lines, I guess, but he would talk to himself. So I guess he was running lines. I sure hope he was running lines. I mean, not like like the town fool or anything, walking around talking to himself, but back and forth, and he would talk to himself. Like I said, it seemed like he was running lines with himself. So that's my brush with Marlon, other than just being on the set around him. Jack Nicholson. And Jack Nicholson was I don't know what kind of person Jack Nicholson is supposed to be in real life. It doesn't matter. I only go by my own experience, and he was a love. I mean, he was so like caring and gentle and animated, and I'll tell you why. So one of my dad's scenes, he gets on a horse, and the horse is like, he has a gun, the guy has a gun, Jack is here with me in two director's chairs, and the scene is like a gun spooks the horse, or the horse is supposed to go wild, and he and another horse and another actor, and my dad being the bad guy with the gun, and the horse is supposed to go crazy and then take off with him. Well, my dad did always a lot of his stunts if he could, and he did this one. And so Jack and I was off here, and Jack was in his director's chair, and I was freaking out because long story short, the whole idea of this horse who was already like unstable, but they wanted the horse to be like, kind of freaky, and he got one. So the horse was already all agitated in between scenes. It kept rearing up. My dad was there. He had a gun. I didn't know much about horses, and I kept thinking he's going to get thrown off and die, But Jack calls me over to the spare director's chair, which I don't know whose it was, and has me sit next to him because he can see I'm freaking out. Just kind of off to myself, kind of freaking out. Well, there's crew, but and he's come here, come here. And so he scooches his director's chair next to mine, and all the while this scene's going on over and over. A freaky horse, guns. I think a gun had to go off and freak the horse out. I actually think so. Maybe that was part of the freak out. So I'm there with Jack, and I'm still freaking out because it's like the horse freaking out. Horse, like, that was like the whole day was horse freaking out with my dad on it. So Jack is like not talking me through it, but he's like distracting me, like, see, like reassuring me, like, it's cool, the horse knows what he's doing, there's those guys, and they're in charge of, the horse or whatever. He was trying to, talk me down, and he distracted me enough that I was distracted enough that I actually could watch the scene being shot, or what was left of the scene that didn't freak me out, being shot. And I just remember Jack, by the end, like by the time my dad was done with that scene or whatever, he had me in that chair next to him, and he was just kind of making sure that I wasn't freaking out, and being, again, so engaging and animated, like, see that. So that's my Jack Nicholson experience. Like I said, I don't know. I don't Google articles about him. I don't know what he's like. That's my experience with Jack Nicholson. It was very, very, very fond experience because I was way tripping out on that horse, and then the gun and everything. Anyway, so that's my Jack Nicholson. That's my Marlon Brando. I'll go into some other stuff about Billings, Montana, because there was other, beautiful stuff. In between shooting, you get to know people. You're not always on the set every day. There's after hours, and there's a beautiful woman that we came to know there, Vicky, wherever you are, Vicky, and she had stables and was a horsewoman, and rural Montana, but not like, this was wealthy kind of land, stables kind of shit. So she was lovely. Her family was lovely. I got to ride horses there at her stables. It was all really, really cool. Had a family member visit the set a little bit later on. It was a little kind of awkward, but other than that, all my location shooting with my dad, good experience. It was just like, not just the brushes with fame, like and I don't name drop, you guys. I'm really not here to name drop. It's just that if these people are parts of my story, then the name drops, I guess, because I'm not going to say like person X or celebrity B. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed them, and I hope, or the stories, and I hope the topic was true to form. And I've got a couple of really interesting like topics I mapped out sort of earlier today that I'm excited actually to do. But we also have a couple of interviews. I have one book that is I got my bucket list interview next week on the July 7th. And then a couple others in the works, but I don't like mention it unless it's nailed. Okay, love you. Thanks for being with me as always. You know, you guys, what can I say? You all know why I love you and being with you. Okay, so see you next time. Cool topics, all kinds of things coming. Hey, you know, like my shows, what do I have? Like 500 million shows, and they're all kind of sequential. So you don't really miss anything if you jump in. And I always make sure that each show has a teaser, whether it's an interview or my show, the Robin Hood Diaries, that you have a teaser. So you can watch like 40 seconds of it. And if it doesn't interest you, move on. Move along. Nothing to see here. Okay, bye again. Take care.